All right. Well, welcome to Two Dudes and Killer Tunes, episode 3. How we doing today, Neil?
Doing well, Cal. Thanks. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. It's good to be back in the chairs with you again, down here in the basement. And we got our second guest, Paul Kaliszewski. Paul, great to have you here today.
Thanks, guys. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
All right. Well, obviously, Paul is my brother, for those of you that don't know out there, and probably the one person I've gone to more concerts with in my life than anyone else.
Yeah, well over 75, probably close to 100.
Easily.
It's been a great ride.
And, I mean, probably pretty close for you, too, Neil.
Yeah, I think, well, the three of us have definitely been to a bunch of concerts, or a bunch of shows together.
Yeah, I'd say
50 plus at least.
Easy. Your number one probably could be Lindsay, maybe, your sister. You've probably been to a ton with her as well. So.
Definitely Lindsay.
All right, well, Paul, it's awesome having you here. You know, we lived together for a while, back in the day.
Yep.
And actually, I remember you having the big, about 500 CDs, down in the basement.
Still have it.
Well, I mean, why would you let it go, right? And, that was actually where the whole Two Dudes, came to fruition. Doing the mixtape. We used the full complement of Paul's catalog, so we appreciated that. And it also became kind of the hub, right, for everyone when we'd go to shows.
Yeah, we always met up before there, made sure we had our tickets, of course, because back then you had to make sure, and had a few drinks and made our way to the shows. So
yeah, usually loaded up about 2 cars.
Yep.
Me and Darby were typically the drivers, and we'd head out there, and usually kind of ended up back at the same place where we started by the end of the night.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing I always like to start out is, like, for you, what is it about live music that just keeps you going back after 100 plus shows?
Yeah, for me, it's being in the atmosphere and seeing one of your favorite bands perform live, seeing the songs that you love and the ones that they love, performing them live, and sometimes getting a little different spin on it with some extra guitar or maybe even a special guest coming out. I think that's one of the main things, and it's always fun, especially I think when one of your favorite artists covers another one of your favorite artists, and you get to experience that. We just went to a show last Saturday. We went and saw Luke Combs, and he covered Fast Car by Tracy Chapman.
Oh, wow,
and it was amazing. I mean, that was like the perfect scenario of what you're talking about. So
absolutely, that's part of that Killer Tunes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you mentioned Tracy Chapman. For those that don't know Paul, he has always been a huge fan of kind of the female singer, the female lead. And maybe dig into that a little bit. Like, who are some of your favorites when you really think about it?
Yeah, I would say my number one is probably Sinead O'Connor.
Oh, yeah.
Have all her CDs, and when she was really getting popular in the early 90s, she just had a beautiful voice and could really knock out some tunes. A little controversial for her time, of course, but she was amazing. One of the female singers I would have always liked to have seen live, but never got the chance. So a couple other ones I definitely always liked: 10,000 Maniacs with Natalie Merchant.
Oh, yeah.
Tanya Donnelly, the lead singer of Belly. Mozzie Star, really liked them a lot.
What was her name? I forget.
Hope Sandoval.
That's right.
Yep. And then, nowadays, Lainey Wilson, she's a country singer, and she's just huge right now. It wouldn't surprise me if she won a Country Entertainer of the Year this year. She's amazing. So, yeah, there's quite a few bands out there, or women.
What about you, Neil? I mean, thinking back.
Well, definitely say Sinead O'Connor, what Paul touched on. Sheryl Crow. Love me some Sheryl Crow. Mama Cass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she
was...
was...
Mamas and the Papas.
From the Mamas and the Papas.
I don't know if you know this, but Mama Cass, she passed away at a young age herself, along like Jim Morrison and the rest. And I think I read somewhere that she died while taking a dump and eating a ham sandwich at the same time. She choked on the ham sandwich, and that was the end of her.
Wow. I
think
did not know that.
Yeah, that could be an urban myth / legend, but
if not, put it in your Googler and
check it out.
Yeah,
ask Jeeves.
Maybe get the true story. But you guys mentioned Sinead, and Paul, you touched on it. She was, way ahead of her time. When they actually had a documentary that was out recently called "Nothing Compares." I don't know if you got a chance to see.
I did. Yeah, it was really, really good. And
when you look at the things that she was talking about and standing up for, I mean, it's like she was way out of her time. She would fit in perfectly today. And the one thing that people don't realize, it was such a short time for her. It's like she was really out there for only about 2 to 3 years, and then just kind of really gave up her stardom for her beliefs, which you don't see a lot. But the funny thing is she's been out there pumping music out ever since.
Oh yeah, she's been putting out new CDs and albums for the last 15-20 years.
And I'm really only know most of her older stuff, but the one thing that I remembered from that documentary that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was that out of the whole thing, you never saw her actually sing "Nothing Compares to You" because the Prince estate did not allow it.
Yeah,
which I always thought that was a little weird, but
a little selfish.
One of the other ones you mentioned it, Tracy Chapman, cover of "Fast Car." I've always, talking about a revolution, give me one reason. That was always find a way into my playlist all the time. And that's one thing. I was never a huge music person, but you really kind of got me more into it. And you always had a very wide range of musical tastes, I'll say. And I will, remember that, we played soccer. We'd go on these tournament road trips, and we'd have our boom box in the back of the Aerostar minivan. It was blue.
Yep.
And, Mom and Dad didn't care what we played. They were like, that's their generation, whatever. And we'd be playing NWA, Two Live Crew, heavy metal, Motley Crue, had the album with the pentagram on it. But, they just kind of let us do our thing. And that's kind of what, the way I've always, been with my kids, whether it's music, movies, or anything like that. And I think you're kind of cut from the same vein that way.
Oh, absolutely.
Which, those were definitely great times in that minivan. Which is going to lead me to our next one. Do you remember your first show?
Yeah, I would have to say my first show was probably Lou Reed in 1992. And we loaded up in Mom and Dad's minivan, me, you, D-Ho, and Mark Stackpool.
Yep.
And we made our way down to, I think it was at the State Theater?
It was the Fox Theater.
Fox Theater. Yep, Fox Theater.
And, I remember being at that show, and we were like the youngest guys there. But on the way there, I'll always remember this, we wanted to stop and get some beer, and none of us were of age. And I think it was Stack was like, I know this place, on the way down to Detroit. And so we pull in there, and, Paul, being the oldest one, looks back and says, I ain't going in. So the 16-year-old guy went in, came out, and I think we had like a 6-pack for the 4 of us, right? I mean, we were loving life. No technology, right? Me and you, horrible with directions.
Yep.
Loaded up in this minivan, trying to find our way to the Fox Theater, and no idea, if we're ever going to make it. Probably, had a triptych, right? The old AAA triptych.
That's the only way we would have made it.
But I do remember that he played his entire album, the new one, Magic and Loss.
Yep.
Which, we talked about that, with Neil Young last episode, where he played a whole thing. And, you kind of muscled through it, but by the time, the end, he played some really cool, I think, Walk on the Wild Side.
Yep.
And some of his earlier stuff, which was amazing. But do you remember what happened on the way home? You know, we made it all the way down and all the way back.
Yeah, and we were in our subdivision, and we were dropping off Deho. And before we could even turn onto his street, we were driving, and we came upon this area where some kids had removed the construction cones and barrels, and they were doing some new cement work there. And we're driving, and all of a sudden, both right tires just blow out, and now we've got 2 flats at 12:15 in the morning on our way home from seeing Lou Reed. Yeah.
Yep. And I'll never forget, our mom and dad's friends happen to live about 4 doors down from where this happened. So we walk over there, we're pounding on their door. They're probably wondering what the hell's going on. And, you know, they called mom and dad, I think, softened the blow for us. But
Yeah.
definitely was one of those things that didn't think we were ever going to be driving that minivan to a concert ever again. But I guess we were mistaken, weren't we?
Yeah, I think it was only about a year later, maybe a year and a half later, we were back in it.
And you remember what that trip was?
Yeah, that one, we ended up getting tickets to go see Beastie Boys in Kalamazoo at Wings Stadium. And for anyone out there who doesn't know, Wings Stadium is not a large football arena or stadium like that. It's where a minor league hockey team played and maybe sat 5,000 people, you know. But yeah, that was a real fun trip. And you and I think it was
Mike Geiger.
Mike Geiger, yeah,
Yep.
picked up me and my roommates from Eastern Michigan when we were living there at the time, and you guys drove us all the way to Kalamazoo.
Yep, we drove to Kalamazoo, and at that point, I think you guys were in the back of the van enjoying some pre-partying.
Yep.
While me and Geiger were manning the ship. Went to the show, and I mean, it was Beastie Boys with Check Your Head Tour. And then having Rollins Band open up was just amazing. And, you know, we get all the way down there, all the way back. And I just remember saying, you know, whatever you guys do, who cares? Just make sure you clean everything up out of the van, because I'm leaving early in the morning, and, you know, come out in the morning about 9 so I could head to work, open up the doors. There's a half gallon of vodka, empty, beer cans everywhere in mom and dad's minivan, and you know, the rest is history, so they say.
Yeah, I think that was the last time we used that minivan for a concert too.
No, you were wrong, sir.
Yeah, we had one more.
We had one more. It was, I believe, Lollapalooza 1992.
Yep, absolutely correct. You're right.
And you know, we mentioned before, Lollapalooza back then was a touring concert. And I mean, it was so popular. I went back and looked. I want to say in 92, it was either 3 or 4 days consecutively at Pine Knot. You know, and they were doing this all over the country, you know, all these extra shows. And, you know, long before days of technology. So, you know, like Paul said, you have to have your ticket. And what did we do? We would go. Where would we go?
Yeah, we would have to sit out in line all night long.
Yep.
Just to make sure that we could get tickets to the shows we wanted to see, and Lollapalooza was obviously a big one. So we would go to Showerman's. It was a party store in Livonia that had a little Ticketmaster in it that you could buy your tickets there, and we sat out all night right out in front of the store in our chairs and slept there. And
you could also get yourself a ham sandwich.
That's right.
Yes.
That was the other thing they were known for, Neil. You're right. It was the honey baked ham store was also.
Don't die like Mama Cass did.
No, of course not. No. No, but yeah, you could sit out all night, and you know, it was just one of those things where as long as it didn't get too crazy, the cops would come by and everyone's enjoying themselves and having a few drinks, and
there's never any problems. You know,
no problems.
Sometimes it'd be like 100, 200 people out there waiting
Yes.
in line, and it would be like, you know, Neil's waiting for Sting tickets, you know, we're waiting for Lollapalooza, and it's all these different walks of life, and you're just, you know, kind of mingling, having a little party and stuff, and
Sting.
you know, by the morning, you know, they're starting to, you know, let everyone in, and you don't know if you're going to get tickets or not. You know,
You don't know until you get up there.
Right. And then, you know, you'd have this random old lady come up behind you and say, "Is this the line for hams?" "Yeah, lady, get back there."
Yeah, no cuts, lady.
Enjoy your ham. But yeah, so this show, the Lollapalooza 92, I mean, was probably like my, just teed up for me perfectly. The lineup was Lush, then Pearl Jam came on second, Jesus and Mary Chain, then Soundgarden, Ice Cube, Ministry, and then Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
Which I'm not a huge Chili Peppers fan, but we'll save that for another episode. But this again, I was the driver this time of Mom and Dad's blue Aerostar minivan.
Yep.
Our third road trip to Pine Knob. Again, we don't know where we're going. It was me, you, I think it was an old girlfriend of yours at the time,
Yep.
your sister.
And her sister, yeah.
And again, you guys are doing your kind of pre-partying. I'm, it's the summer before my senior year in high school. But as we get there, we had bought a watermelon, a huge watermelon and a fifth of vodka. And, you pour it in there, soak it up real good, and then you just eat the watermelon. No one liked the watermelon, except for me. And I ended up eating, like, this whole damn thing pretty much. I don't even remember walking into the concert. We got to the hill, and I proceeded to pass out and woke up just in time for Ice Cube. So I missed the first four bands, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Jesus and Mary Chain, who I wanted to see the most. And, Paul did take care of me.
Oh, of course, yeah. Everyone there was having a great time, and I don't know why these guys had it, but they had Korn with them. And
Not the band.
Not the band, no.
Okay.
They weren't even around yet. And and they saw you passed out down there, and they thought it'd be funny to start throwing corn off your head and throwing it at you. And I was fine with it as long as they didn't hurt you or throw anything that could have cut you or anything. So yeah, you got
as
corn
long as
thrown
it
in.
didn't escalate. Which I woke up, I remember, and I'm like, why the hell is there kernels of corn on me? And Paul filled me in, and I'm like, I guess it makes sense. But I do remember being all in for Cube and Ministry and Chili Peppers. I'll never forget that. Which brings me to the next question for both of you here. Remembering like a concert that you went to that you don't remember a dang thing of it, or something like that maybe happened.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you go to 100 shows, there's going to be a handful of them that you did a little too much pre-partying, or
It sneaks up on you.
yeah, or it's just such a long event that it can happen that way. I mean, we had Columbus with Smashing Pumpkins just last summer. We got there nice and early to watch Liverpool play Real Madrid in the Champions League final. Got a good base in us,
Unfortunately, Liverpool lost
again. And
again.
yeah.
It's always this year, fellas.
Yep. We'll see. And and then we ended up going to the show, and never forget, we started with those 24-ounce
The Boombas.
the Boombas of the White Claws, and just going to town. And by the end of the show, it was a tough walk back to the hotel, I can tell you that much. And I don't know if anyone's been to Columbus, but in this area they have this wire and it's only about 8 inches off the ground, so it's really just a trip hazard if anything. And I took one bad step, and there I'm wrapped up in this wire, and you guys tried to help me get out, but it was not easy.
We did everything we could to help you after we were done laughing.
Yes.
Taking pictures.
Yeah, of course.
But no, that was Columbus, right? Like you said, we went and watched the game, got the, I think you mentioned the early bird special for a dinner.
Yeah.
And walked to the show, and then walking back to the hotel. It's just a cool environment,
So the one to say what was my I think I've had plenty of shows where I've been a little too many.
Probably 2 or 3.
Yeah. Yeah, only 2 or 3. But the Horde Fest, I think it was.
Oh, I remember that
with
one.
Bare Naked Ladies, Blues Traveler. I had a couple too many pops, and ended up passing out over the railing, right? And
At Pine Knob, yeah, right there.
You guys told me, like, is he all right? One of the guys from Pine Knob were like, is he all right? And, yeah, he's okay. Well, can you get him off of that railing? And you're like, okay. So then you just put me on the lawn, and that's where I proceeded to pass out for another hour or two.
Right. It was like moving a dead body.
Yeah.
I mean, Neil was just out like a light. It was the first time I think Echon ever even met you. You know, we somehow like, we're going to be at this rail. Walk up. He walks up. The first thing he sees is just, you know, Neil all slunched over. Yeah, we had to take you off the rail, and we literally moved you like 4 feet behind the rail. Passed out on the ground. The guy was okay with that, apparently.
And then, who I wanted to see the most was Bare Naked Ladies. Yeah, I was 21, 22 years old. I was a big Bare Naked. I'm still a big Bare Naked Ladies fan, but
The only one.
the only one.
Well, besides all the Canadian fans out there.
Oh yeah, Canada. And I got to hear the Bare Naked Ladies. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, this is perfect. Because I felt all those other bands.
You're all rejuvenated?
Yep.
Probably had a few more beers in you by the time it was over, too,
definitely
I
did.
bet.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
So, you know, the one thing, Paul, like, we've been to all these shows together, but it's actually been very rare that the two of us by ourselves go to a show together.
Yeah.
You know,
There's usually a big group, and that's the one thing I think over the years, you know, not only have we influenced each other with concerts and music, you know, we've brought in some of our other friends, and they've really gotten into it with us. So, and I also think that it's always fun to go to a show with a larger group, so more people can enjoy the show and then, you know, share the memories after.
Absolutely, which is the whole point of this show, right? Is
Yeah,
doing
for sure.
just that. I do remember the very first one, and really, I really thought long and hard, and I could only come up with, I think, 3. Of all, you know, almost 100 shows, I think, there was just me and them. There's probably more out there, but the very first one, I think, was Neil Young, if you remember. And it was at the Fox Theater. It was an all-acoustic set. And, I mean, we were probably, like, 15 rows back from the stage. I mean, I remember this was, like, 25 years ago. I mean, tickets were $100.
Yeah.
But you know, we were huge Neil Young fans, especially acoustic, and it was like this small, intimate thing where, you know, if you went up and, you know, during a song or whatever, go to the bathroom, they didn't let you back down until it was in between.
Yep, you had to wait.
It was one of those hoity-toity shows, right? But that was the first one I remember. And then there was in 2016, we call it your birthday show.
Yeah.
You know, something we'd been waiting for, you know, hell, decades at this point, pretty much. It was Guns N' Roses, Ford Field, the opening night where Axl and Slash and Duff got all back together.
Yep, they got the band back together, and it was a great birthday experience, and we had great seats. We were front row, third deck, but we were right over the stage pretty much. And the one thing about Ford Field, you know, surprisingly, and, you know, this is my opinion, but the acoustics there are really, really good. And for a band like Guns N' Roses and someone like Axl Rose, who's always had his critics and how he's not a good live performer, they put on a really good show, and they sounded great.
I thought it was amazing. You know, I thought Axl's voice held up because they played, I mean, it was like 2.5 hours, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Everything was on time, you know, which is always a critique with Axl. Slash's guitar, you know, seeing that live was it was really, really something special. You know, and being downtown, I think we hit up Andrew's Bar, you know, hadn't been there in a while, and caught the shuttle over and back, which is really cool.
Well, it's funny that we're talking about the Guns N' Roses show that we went to together. Do you remember when we went and saw them? It was just Axl, and it was at the Palace.
Yes,
with Buckethead.
Yep. Buckethead was the
Slash at the time.
Which actually, in his own right, good guitar player, but he ain't Slash.
No.
The one thing I do remember about that show, and you were there with us, Neil, was it was a dead of winter. Snowstorm was horrible, and you know, this was when Axl was being Axl, and he never traveled with the band. He would have his own flight. He'd come in kind of JIT just in time for the show.
Yep.
And, you know, we get there. We walk up, you know, the Palace. You had the stairs that would go up. And right there was a beer guy. common practice. You walk into the Palace, the first thing you do is stop at that beer guy.
Yep.
And, we were probably there about 8, and what did he tell us?
Axel's not even in the building yet.
Axel wasn't even in the state yet. His plane hadn't even taken off because Metro Airport was so bad. Remember that? And I forget. I mean, again, I know Daria was there, and I forget who else, but at least the 4 of us. And we're just sitting there talking to this guy. And, he noticed our beers were about half empty. And he just started grabbing them from us and filling them up, not charging us money. And we're just talking to this guy.
Yep.
And I think it was probably about 11 o'clock. He's like, all right, he's confirmed in the building. And so he topped us off one last time, and we kind of went about our business. And I think he started actually playing at midnight.
Mm-hmm. That sounds about right.
And, to me, I had never seen Guns N' Roses, so just seeing Axl sing was, I thought, pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And they killed it till like 2:15 in the morning.
Yeah, and that reminds me of Uncle Steve, and he was telling me a story about when he went and saw Guns N' Roses in Los Angeles, back in their heyday, and they were supposed to go on at 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock rolled around, 11 o'clock rolled around. They ended up didn't take the stage until 2 in the morning. That's when they started the concert. It was at 2 in the morning, went till 4, and that was it. That was how they did it back then, I guess.
That's Axl, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's Axl.
So the one thing that the Ford Field show, it was actually a really good show. They had we talk about those killer tunes, and I remember as we're sitting there, and you're like, man, I really hope they play Coma. I really hope they play Coma, and they delivered, didn't they?
They sure did, yeah.
And they definitely killed that. But the opener was Alice in Chains, obviously with, the new lead singer. And me and Paul were out having a smoke, and in between Alice in Chains and Guns N' Roses, and we're just talking to this guy, and I mean, he was all jazzed up about how awesome Alice in Chains was. Mm-hmm. And I think you made the comment that, well, yeah, they actually sounded really good, but nothing like when Lane Staley,
right,
was around. And I mean, his eyes got so big. You looked at it and said, oh my God, you guys saw Alice in Chains with Lane Staley? He called his buddy over. It was like, it was almost like we were the Godfather at that point,
yeah,
with this guy.
Super excited.
But I mean, it was, when you saw Lane Staley live, it was something special. And it definitely, we've always talked about, if you have the chance to see a band, go and do it, because you never know.
Right.
And you actually had one of the ultimate ones of those, didn't you?
Yeah, I went with a bunch of my buddies from Eastern Michigan, and we went to the state fairgrounds, and we saw Nirvana play October 29th of 93.
It was 93, yep.
Yep, and it was one of the, I think it's 25 or 30 last shows that Nirvana played together, and we were fortunate enough to see them, and they did not disappoint. They were amazing.
Yeah, what was that experience like? Because obviously I didn't get to go. I was on a road trip with soccer at the time.
Yeah, of course, they were at the height of their game, and the buzz was just so big. And, it was just one of those shows that you knew every song. You could sing along with every song. They didn't disappoint, and you had the best time of your life. And you actually felt like you were part of something, right? So you left there, and then, for the next week, you told, I think, every single person that you saw that I just went and saw Nirvana. And then,
And here we are 30 years later, and you're doing the same thing still, which I would be too if I had that opportunity.
Yeah, it was something special.
And that was, so that was October, and it was, I think, 6 months later, he was gone.
Yeah, and, we've talked about Lollapalooza and hit on it a little bit already, but the 1994 Lollapalooza, Nirvana was signed to headline that. That's right. After he was murdered, Smashing Pumpkins ended up signing on to be the headliner, and I'm glad for them, and I love Smashing Pumpkins, so it still worked out for me and everything, but yeah.
Yeah, that was probably one of the that definitely rivaled the '92 Lollapalooza as far as lineup. You had Beastie Boys, Smashing Pumpkins, Tribe Called Quest. I mean, it was awesome. And actually, I remember reading in the Beastie Boys book about that. They used to actually play pickup basketball games whenever the tour would stop. And, the Beastie Boys were talking about, they weren't even really familiar with Billy Corgan and the Smashing Pumpkins, but Billy Corgan's like 6'4". He's a tall dude. And so the Beasties are playing basketball, Corgan's there, Q-Tip playing with him and all that. And I guess at one point, Billy Corgan just brought the pain and dunked him. I'm assuming a little lower rim or whatever. But it was funny to read about that and like see how they, read how they interacted and stuff in their downtime. And that show was amazing. Going back to the ones that we've been to, just me and you, the Guns N' Roses, that was awesome. But the one that really stood out was Dave Matthews and Tim Reynolds. Yeah. And I happened to win 2 tickets on the radio, of all things. Never done that in my life, right? And they're like, oh, you can win. And I've never seen Tim Reynolds. We've seen Dave Matthews plenty of times. We used to get all those CDs. They'd release them, Dave Matthews and Tim Reynolds, and it's just the two of them, acoustic guitars, no other instruments, and just jamming. And it was actually June 13th of 2017. I think that actually is Keith's birthday, if I remember correctly.
What up, Keith?
What up? But that show was just amazing. Neil, have you ever seen Dave Matthews with Tim Reynolds or no? Because I know you've seen Dave Matthews quite a few times.
No, not with Tim Reynolds. Definitely Tim Matthews. Dave Matthews, shoot. I think all of us together have seen him at least 6-7 times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but no, not with Tim Reynolds. And Tim Reynolds is amazing.
Yeah. It's really something to watch those two together and play off each other. And the songs, they played the entire, Dave Matthews Band catalog. It was really amazing. And that was the first time I've seen Dave Matthews since they played Comerica, like years ago. I used to be kind of a concert snob. I'm like, I remember seeing them for $20 when they opened, or when Big Head Todd opened up for them at the State Theater, front row center. Now I'm paying $40 at Comerica, the third level, and it sounds like crap.
Comerica's not the best place, I don't think, to see a concert.
Exactly.
But hopefully they've gotten better.
I mean, I'm sure down low and everything, if you're at Comerica Park, it's an amazing show, but I don't think if you're up in the stands and everything, because that sound has to just go, and it's not going anywhere. It's not reverberating off. So, have
you seen any other shows at Comerica?
No,
I haven't.
No,
Dave Matthews was the one, and wasn't very good.
Yeah, we've got. We're taking my daughters, Brooke and Mackenzie, to see Pink.
Oh, nice.
And that's at Comerica, so we're excited about that. It's August 16th, so we got them tickets for Christmas, and I know they're excited. We're excited to go with them, and like I said, hopefully the sound's a little better this time. But
no,
that's cool that you take your daughters already. At a young age. It's something that I remember. I think 5, 7, and 10 were my three. When we took them to their first one, and it just goes back to the love of live music and trying to pass that down, and and then it's kind of cool too watching as they get older, their likes and stuff and shows they're going to and everything. So
and you had touched on it earlier about your mom and dad took their Aerostar or whatever, and also introduced you guys to good music, and as did my mom and dad, listen to 104.3, 94.7.
Oh, yeah.
Old Beatles, old
Motown for sure.
Yeah, everything, so thankfully they did that for us while we were traveling in a freaking van to road trips or going to soccer tournaments, and so I'm glad that you guys are doing the same for your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. everyone connects on music, and especially live music. But that's funny you bring that up. I remember whenever we were in the car with Dad, the game he'd play.
Yeah.
You know who sings this?
Yep. And we would always guess. Beatles
or Elvis every single time, and like we'd be right like once out of like 40.
Right.
Yeah, and your dad is brilliant at that game. He knows every freaking song, every artist of that tune.
I still play that with my kids, and the usual response is, we don't know that.
Right.
This is always funny. So you mentioned you got the Pink concert coming up.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I guarantee she'll probably be flying through the air doing something. But actually, I like quite a few songs by her.
Pink is sweet.
So you did mention earlier, we were hoping to have you as our first guest. We talked to you about that, but you were busy last week. And what were you busy doing?
Yeah, we went and saw Luke Combs
you
at
mentioned that earlier.
Ford Field, and the show was amazing. Lainey Wilson was one of the openers. I mentioned her earlier. She just knocked it out of the park. I mean, what a great performer. Her voice is incredible, and I know everyone's probably heard, a few of her songs. And then Riley Green, he did a great job. He's got a song, I Wish Grandpa's Never Died, that was real popular in the country scene, as they say. And then, of course, Luke Combs. I mean, he went on and he played for 2 straight hours. His encore was just turning down the lights and grabbing a guitar and coming back right there on stage. He didn't.
Wow.
It was something else. It was amazing.
So that brings up my question. When did you turn to the dark side of country music? That was something I think me and Neil have talked about in the past, that we never saw that one coming. And about 5-6 years ago?
Yeah, I'd say 5 or 6 years ago.
How'd that all happen?
You mentioned earlier, I have a wide variation of music that I do like. I didn't think country would be one of them, but, you hang out with people, and we have a good buddy, Vinny, and he would always say, "Oh, you got to hear this country song. It's killer, man."
Yeah.
And so I started listening to it a little bit here and there, and I really liked the Jason Aldean and his sound. And once I started listening to him, it just sort of carried on to, Luke Bryan and then Luke Combs. And then, of course, now with Morgan Wallen, who's just phenomenal, that guy,
Yeah, I saw he's coming up in June at Ford Field. Actually, you're going to that or no?
No. Nowadays, sometimes when these artists get so big, it's unfortunate, and you have people out there that'll just buy tickets, and then with no intention of going, they don't even like the artist, with the sole purpose of just reselling them online. And you look and shoot, tickets are $400, $500, $600 for a show.
Right.
That I can wait and see him next year. He's not going anywhere type thing. So, but I do want to definitely see him, and I know Mackenzie would love to see him as well. She's a real big country fan.
You mentioned, I think it was Luke Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually saw him around here, the Howell area, didn't you?
Yeah. He did the farm tour.
Okay.
And it was over in the Weberville, Fowlerville area, where he just, people that own farms, and a lot of the proceeds go to the farming industry. And yeah, he played a show there, and it was great. Really liked it.
So what was that environment like? Actually, I remember dropping you guys off there, I think the first time you went, and I just remember seeing like campers and motorhomes all over the place. Like, it must have been some big party, man.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. I mean, anytime you go to a country concert, if you don't have a good time, it's your own fault. Because everyone there is just there to have a blast and have a good time. And I don't think the maybe 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 now, country shows I've been to, I've never seen any issues, fights, or anything like that. Everyone's there just to have a great time and just listen to the music.
And that's a good point. I mean, almost any concert you go to, you can have a good time. And I think the only exceptions I can think of is Duran Duran, if you remember that one, with Pickles. And then I would say Jack Johnson was, good. But,
and I will ask you this, Paul. I know you went to a Sweet concert in Boston. I think you went and saw the Killers, the National, Portugal the Man. Could you elaborate on that and how good of a show was that?
That was in 2018. It was just coming out of, the winter and this and that, and I was looking to do something and with Leah, my wife, and I was just looking, I saw this concert's coming, there's going to be in Boston. And I've never been to Boston, and I thought it'd be fun just for the historical, atmosphere of it. And then I looked at the lineup, and it was a 3-day festival. And the very first day on the Friday, it was Portugal the Man, the National, and the Killers.
Wow.
All playing on the same night, one right after another. I mean, they didn't even have to break down the stage because the second band, which was the National, was just playing on a stage right next door, just as big. They had two huge stages. And it was right there on Harvard's campus.
Oh, wow.
So we got a chance. Yeah, so we got a chance to visit Harvard's campus. We went and saw the concert Friday night, which was just to die for, And then, we got to do the sightseeing thing. Leah got her lobster roll and everything like that she wanted, and it was a really good time. Boston's a beautiful area, and
way better than a country concert, right?
That concert was one of the best I've been to in a while, to be honest with you.
So it was a festival. Do you remember what was the name of it? Do you remember?
Boston Calling.
Boston Calling. Okay. I've
Yep.
never heard of that one.
And actually, Eminem was the headliner on the Sunday night.
Oh, really?
So,
that would have been cool to stick around for that. But you got to get back to the real life, right? Neil, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's something to be said about going to concerts, away from home, different states or whatever. I remember going to Cleveland with Emily and seeing Coldplay back in 2016. And, I was really impressed with Cleveland. A little downtown, you hang out, you do whatever, you go and see a great show, which I'd never been a Coldplay fan per se, but it was an amazing show. It was like you said, one of those where every song. They sounded great. But that reminds me of one that we all went together, and it's probably the farthest I would think we've probably all traveled for a show, was in San Diego.
Yeah, definitely.
And we went out there. We rented an apartment basically right on the beach, right on Mission Beach. And the first night we were there, we went and saw Ben Harper, which, for me, I absolutely love Ben Harper. I know you guys will go to a show anytime. It might not be your favorite, but, so many cool songs. What did you think about that show, Paul?
That was another one where, you might have started a little too early in the day. Dario and I got up bright and early, sat on the balcony, just, people watching and enjoying the view over the Pacific Ocean over there, and started having a few pops. And by the time the concert rolled around, sometimes you just got to take a nap. And I'm not a big Jack Johnson fan. He's okay. You mentioned it, so I think that's when I took that opportunity to just take a nap and really recuperate before Ben Harper came on.
Yeah. And
Uncle Steve was involved in that a lot too.
Absolutely,
that's for sure.
Absolutely, he was. We know which favorite song his was.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, Burn One Down by Ben Harper. Check it out. I think a lot of that had to do probably with the time change, though, too, Paul.
Yeah, a little bit of jet lag as well.
For sure.
I'm sure.
But you know what? You guys remember that was August, I think, of 2003. And that happened to be the worst blackout in the Midwest, ever. It was 7 days of no power whatsoever. And we just happened to ride it out in San Diego.
Yeah.
Right on the beach while everyone was back home, buying up toilet paper and everything else.
Trying to get gas.
And, we hunkered down. We did our part in San Diego, and then we got back. All the power was out. It was great. I don't know what all the
fuss.
Fuss was about.
Yeah.
So, but I'll never forget that. That was a great trip. I think we even saw there was a Spence sighting. I think.
Oh yeah,
that week. And I do remember, I don't think I stayed up past 9 o'clock that entire vacation. because like you start early, you're in the water, in the sand, and next thing you know, you're out like a light.
Playing beach football.
Yep, like Bodie and Point Break.
Absolutely. And then we go to
X Games.
We went to L.A.
for the X Games.
Yep, that's right.
Oh, yeah, X Games.
We saw the X Games. It was another one of those times Uncle Steve's driving, and he's like, "Where's the hotel?" I'm like, "I don't know." I go, "You're from California?" He's like, "I'm not from L.A." And then, you find it by chance, So
Yeah.
all those directions.
He was a good driver.
Yeah, he was awesome.
And I'm not saying that he was awesome.
Yeah. So
Scary, but
definitely. Kind of brings us to the part of the show where we like to talk about, some of the upcoming concerts. You mentioned you're already going to see Pink. The one I noticed is Alicia Keys is coming, and you went and saw her, I believe.
Last fall, Lee and I took our daughters, Mackenzie and Brooke, to go see Alicia Keys at Freedom Hill in Sterling Heights. And she was great. It's a smaller venue. For anyone that's been to Pine Knob, which I'm sure plenty of you out there have, it's a smaller version of Pine Knob, a little more intimate and
Meadowbrookish.
Yeah, more Meadowbrookish. Yeah, good call, Neil. But it's a really fun place to see a concert, and real small, and you got the good sight lines, and you've got just great acoustics there as well.
Yeah, and it's an outdoor show, which just makes it that much better.
Yeah, always great.
You gonna head to that one this year, or I think it's at LCA this time?
Yeah, no, we're not going to make it there this year. We've got the Pink concert with the girls, and then Lee and I are taking Mackenzie to go see Jason Aldean at Pine Knob in September. Okay. So those are the two big ones for the girls this year.
It's not the one where you have to see it every time, right? You kind of did it, so you branch out, see some other things.
Yeah, and I think that for the girls being young and give them that variety too. You don't want to keep going back to the same one. Right. It can sort of.
And I think we've always kind of done that, right? You kind of have the core, we always talk about the Pumpkins, Rusted Root, or, that, every time Dave Matthews, every time they're around, you pretty much go see them, but then you have these other ones that, you see them, you kind of did it, but, go see something else,
Yeah.
That variety, that's one of the things that always has kept me coming back, going and seeing the different bands and all that. A couple of the ones I had, kind of in mind were The Cure. I haven't heard from The Cure in ages, right? And I mean, I used to love their songs back in the high school days, right? They're playing Pine Knob.
Yeah.
And I thought of them too when you were mentioning the Morgan Wallen about the prices, right? So The Cure is actually selling $20 lawn tickets at Pine Knob.
That's great.
They wanted to keep the prices down, get all the old fans out, or new fans, kind of come get a taste of The Cure for at a reasonable price. Well, people started posting their receipts online. Their $20 tickets ended up costing like $45 because of all the additional fees they got. And Robert Smith and The Cure actually went up against them, and all of a sudden all these people started getting refunds for a bunch of that stuff.
Good for them.
Absolutely, totally cool to see them do that, but I would love to see them in concert. I've never seen them. I have this one down, Paul. Kenny Chesney and Kelsey Ballerini. Is that a country one that you're going to check out, or no?
No. Not a big Kenny Chesney fan. Don't mind Kelsey Ballerini, but again, I've got other acts I'd rather see before we venture into those.
What about Pumpkins? They're coming. Did you know that? September 6th, I think.
Yeah, September 6th. So there's a chance I'll be making an appearance at that one. I've got the Jason Aldean concert on that Friday, so I don't know that I'll be taking the kids to Pumpkins or anything like that. But
no, it's probably a little young. Wow, 2 concerts in 3 days. You think you can pull that off?
I've done it before. I went to 4 concerts in 6 days.
Yeah, we did.
Do
you remember
the summer of Paul? Yeah.
Do you remember the 4?
Yeah, it was the 20th Century Doors with
Doors of the 21st Century.
Yeah. Doors of the 21st Century with the lead singer of the Cult.
Yep, Ian Astbury.
Yep. Who else was it? Pumpkins?
Nope.
No?
Nope, it was Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam.
Neil Young.
And then
Ben Harper.
And Ben
That was
Harper.
at Meadowbrook. And there was like 8 of us that went to that, but me and you had the tickets like
To go.
eight rows from the stage.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool back then. Yeah, I think you could pull it off. You might need a vacation day or 2 in there somewhere.
That's what they're there for.
You mentioned Natalie Merchant earlier,
Mm-hmm.
which is always, we saw her at the Horde Fest, I believe, one year.
Mm-hmm.
And with 10,000 Maniacs, I think.
Yep.
And then she also has that pretty cool song with Billy Bragg and Wilco on Mermaid Avenue. But she's playing in May at the Michigan Theater in Ann Arbor. That'd be a pretty cool one to check out.
Oh, I'd love to check that out.
And then the other one I had down, the mainstay, every year, Dave Matthews Band.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys going to go? Pine Knob again? I think it's June.
I'm probably not going to go.
No.
Yeah, I won't be doing the Dave Matthews this year.
Of course, would love to see him, but
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where you got so much other stuff going on that just there's only so much time, money, and energy, right? So, yeah, I mean that pretty much brings us to the end of the show. Paul, it's been awesome having you.
Yeah, thank you.
Catching up on all these old times.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I think that we've got so much that we could talk about. We could keep going for days, and it wouldn't surprise me if we had you back on another time.
Season 2.
Absolutely. Maybe we get the band back together, us 3, and hit that pumpkin show September 6th.
hell yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? It's been awesome. Neil, great job. I love doing this with you, man.
All right, Ken. All right, bros. Rock
All
out.
right. We will see everyone the next time.